Hi, welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay, well, let's learn English together. Hello, people. Hello to all of you folk out there in Hungarian TV land. Sitting down, cup of tea or coffee by your side, ready to start today's lesson. And can I just ask, how are you all today? Are you all excited about the fact that it's Friday and that the weekend begins today? You must be. Everyone loves Friday. Okay, so let's get this Friday session started by finishing what we started yesterday. Okay, so what was the last thing we did yesterday? It was something to do with schools, wasn't it? Yes. It's all coming back to me now. So, let's think of an example. Students in British schools have to wear uniforms. When I was at school, I had to wear a uniform. In my last 2 years of school, I didn't have to wear a uniform. When I was at school, students in their last 2 years of school didn't have to wear a uniform. So, we've got a few examples there, haven't we? The first sentence is talking about life in general in the UK. In the UK, when you go to school, you have to wear a uniform. The next sentence is about me, personally. When I was at school, I had to wear a uniform. It's obligation in the past, so I use had to. What about the next sentence? Again, it's about me. In the last 2 years, when I went to school, I didn't have to wear a uniform. So, in the past, when I was in the last 2 years of my school career, there was no obligation for me to wear a uniform. If I wanted to wear a uniform, then that wasn't a problem. But I didn't have to. There was no obligation. And the last sentence? Well, that sentence is about students in general, and it's also about the lack of obligation in the past. When I was at school many, many years ago, students in the last 2 years of school didn't have to wear a uniform. We use the same form of didn't plus have to when I'm talking about myself. I didn't have to. And also when I'm talking about students in general, they didn't have to. So, we use the same form. Did not have to plus an infinitive without to. Because it's in the past, we don't have to conjugate it. All of the sentences we make follow the same form. Subject, did, not, have to, infinitive without to. Okay. So yesterday, we looked at what happens when we talk about strong obligation in the past. The fact that we can't use must in the past. Must only exists in the present. So, when we want to talk about strong obligation in the past, we have to use had to. We have to use the form of strong obligation have to, and because we want to talk about the past, we have to put have to into the past. It becomes had to. Now, this isn't a big deal. This is a very easy form to use. We don't have to conjugate anything for the different subjects. We start with a subject, add had to, and then follow with a verb in the infinitive without to. Simple, pimple. As easy as falling off a log, a cinch. Child's play, as easy as pie. Okay, now in our last lesson together, we also touched on the fact that when we add not to have to, we get a strange result. We don't get the opposite of have to. No, When we add not to have to, we get the idea of no obligation, not the idea of obligation the other way. This is pretty odd, let's face it. When we add not to must, we get must not or mustn't. Fine, that's logical. We get the same idea, but in the opposite direction. If we must ring the boss between 7:55 and 8 a.m., we grasp the idea that we have to ring the boss in those 5 minutes. If we ring the boss before 7:55 or after 8 a.m., there will be trouble. We know that if we phone the boss at 7:54, we will be in trouble. And we also understand that if we telephone the boss at 8:01, then we will also be in trouble. Now, let's change the direction of that sentence and add not. Now the sentence is, we mustn't ring the boss between 7:55 and 8 a.m. Now, the obligation is still there. It's still strong obligation. But now we grasp the idea that we must not phone the boss in that 5-minute period. If we do, there will be trouble. We can phone the boss at any time apart from that 5-minute period. Any time which is not between 7:55 and 8 a.m. is okay. 9 a.m. Great. 10:23 fab. 6:56 of course. 12:33 why not? 3 a.m. sure. 9:30 at night absolutely. All of these times are fine, but we mustn't call the boss between 7:55 and 8 a.m. If we do, there will be trouble. Okay, so that's logical. Take the idea of strong obligation, add not to make the negative version, and we get the opposite idea. Okay, but with have to, with the other form we use for strong obligation, then when we add not, we get a different result. When we add not to have to, we remove the obligation. When we add not to have to, then we end up with a lack of obligation. We don't have to means we can if we want, but there's no obligation. Okay, and so on we go. Now, last lesson, we looked at what happens when we want to use the idea of strong obligation in the past. Now, we all recall that we can't use must in the past. Must hasn't got a past form. Must only exists in the present. So, when we want to talk about strong obligation in the past, we have to use the past form of have to. This means that we have to conjugate have to and turn it into had to. Okay, this doesn't cause us any problems. We know that when we use have to in the past, when we use had to, we don't have to worry about changing anything with different subjects. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they. It's all had to. Had to and a verb in the infinitive without to. Simple. Now today, we're going to have a look at something which we haven't thought about yet. Okay, we're still thinking about have to. We know what we change when we make have to negative, don't we? Yes, that's right. We need an auxiliary verb, don't we? Yes, we use the auxiliary verb to do to help us make the negative version. I have to becomes I don't have to. We need the auxiliary verb do, properly conjugated, to help us make the negative version of have to. And here's Mabel, our friendly amphibian, with a table for us all to inspect. Okay, now in the table we wrote the full long version, But we all know that we all prefer the short or abbreviated version. So usually, especially when we're talking, we'll say I don't, you don't, he, she, it doesn't, we don't, you don't, they don't. Okay, so we know that we need an auxiliary verb to make the negative. Great. Now what do you remember about the question form? Do you remember what we need to make a question with the form have to? That's right. We need an auxiliary verb to make the question form, don't we? So, which auxiliary verb do we need? We need the same auxiliary verb, the verb to do. So, how do we ask a question with have to? Well, we start with the verb to do. We have to conjugate the verb correctly for the different subjects. Then, we follow the verb to do, correctly conjugated, with the subject. I, you, Dave, Sharon, Chobber, Vidag, whatever. After the subject, we add have to. And what do we remember about have to here? That's right. We keep the form have to. We don't have to conjugate here. We conjugated the verb to do. So here we just use have to for all the subject. Have to stays the same. Now, after have to, what comes next? That's right. Now we add a verb in the infinitive without to. And at the end? That's right. We need to finish with a question mark, don't we? Okay. Now, what do you think is coming next? Yes, that's right. There's no time for us to look at any more grammar today. We'll come back to that later on, because now, yes, she's here. Here she is. It's Enid.
Well, hello, people. Hello, hello. Oh, God, I must stop shouting. I don't feel too well today. Last night, I went to the Ponzi Peacock with my friends. Rupert was there, Archibald was there, and Clementina was there. We drank cocktails. We drank lots and lots of cocktails. We drank too many cocktails, really. We went to the Ponzi Peacock to celebrate my ECG report. The doctor told me that my ECG was perfect, so I decided to celebrate. Oh, my poor head! I feel the same way Alfredo feels on Monday mornings. I feel French. Oh, I went to the doctor for a checkup after my DOMS experience. I was meant to go back to the doctor's surgery today, but I didn't go. I felt too bad. So I phoned the doctor and cancelled my appointment. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going home to rest. Keith's not speaking to me. He's angry with me for not taking him for a walk. He's not talking to me. He's giving me the cold shoulder. But I can't take him for a walk. I feel awful. I feel terrible. I'm going home to sleep. Toodaloo. Pip, pip. Chili. Bye.
Oh dear, that's not good, is it? I thought it was a bit risky, hitting the cocktail bar at the Ponzi Peacock the day before a checkup at the doctor's. Oh dear, poor Enid. And now, to make things even worse, Keith isn't talking to her. Oh. First, a hangover, a really bad hangover. The sort of hangover with your hair hurts. And then Keith gives you the cold shoulder. Poor Enid. Oh well, I'm sure she'll be back on her feet in no time. Let's hope so. Okay, that's all from us for today. I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend, but take care with the cocktails, especially if you're planning on going to see the doctor. Okay, see you all later, have fun, and remember, www.m5tv.hu. Bye!